Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of MazzaOnMets. I hope you all had a great 4th of July weekend as the New York Mets beat the New York Yankees over the weekend, 2 out of 3 in Subway Series round two. We'll talk a lot about the Subway Series on this show. We'll also get into pitcher news, some good pitcher news for the New York Mets heading into the last first half week of the season, the first half of the season. They are in Baltimore starting tomorrow for a 3 game series. And over the weekend, they play the Kansas City Royals in Kansas City before the All-Star break. We'll talk about, speaking of the All-Star game, we'll talk about the Mets All-Star games and who's participating in the All-Star game. We know the full list of Mets now, including one big snub. You know who I'm going to talk about. We'll also talk about a couple of DH news. Looks like we don't know yet about one guy, but we will see the return of another. But anyway, over the weekend, 4th of July weekend, the Mets and the Yankees faced off in round two of the Subway Series. 2 months ago, they met up in Yankee Stadium where the Yankees took 2 out of 3. That had a lot of circumstances, a lot of hype, a lot of buzz. Two first place teams facing off at Yankee Stadium, the return of Juan Soto in the Bronx, the way Yankee fans, with the Yankee fan reactions to Juan Soto, all that stuff. And the Yankees won the series 2 out of 3. This, like I said before, was a bit of a different series. Two teams that were not really playing their best coming into the series. The Mets were not throwing their best pitchers at all. The Yankees were at least throwing professional pitchers out there. Marcus Stroman on Friday, Carlos Rodon on Saturday, Max Fried on Sunday. The Mets were throwing Justin Hageman and Frankie Montez and Chris Davinsky and Brandon Waddell, Zach Pop, Rico Garcia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Brandon Waddell. And the Mets had a challenge here. They had a challenge in this series. Coming off the 2 out of 3 against the Milwaukee Brewers, you had to keep the momentum. The Yankees were coming off four straight loss to the Toronto Blue Jays, but the Yankees had the pitching momentum. They still had the better offense statistically. The Mets had a challenge. And I said on the last show, I said before, the previous show, if the Mets are going to win this series, they were going to have to hit. And they hit. The Mets out hit the Yankees on Friday and Saturday. And this series was a home run derby. This was a home run barrage. Home runs here and home runs there from each team during this entire series. This was for a series that did not have as much hype and pop and excitement. And again, the crowds were all packed. And like I said before, you'll always get the crowds, at Yankee games. But there wasn't as much excitement coming into this one, just like there was 2 months ago. But there was a lot more offense and a lot more excitement and a lot more hitting and a lot more home runs hitting this series at Citi Field, mind you, by the way, compared to Yankee Stadium, which is much more of a hitter's ballpark than Citi Field. But this was Citi Field. The wind was blowing. This was a hitter's series over the weekend. The Mets and Yankees hit a ton of home runs. But we start off on Friday. Marcus Stroman facing off against Justin Hageman. This was supposed to be Paul Blackburn, but Paul Blackburn suffered injury. Went on the injured list. And again, this was, like I said, this was going to be a challenge for the Mets. The Mets had to out hit the Yankees if they were going to win. And it didn't. And it got off to the start exactly that you probably thought. Justin Hageman went out there in the top of the first inning and gave up back-to-back home runs right off the bat to Jason Dominguez and Aaron Judge. Right off the bat, it's 2-0 Yankees, and you're thinking, well, yeah, that's to be expected. And this might be a bit of a long day for the New York Mets. This was, of course, a 4:10 in the afternoon game on July 4th. But to credit to Justin Hageman, he battled 4 1/3, 5 hits. He did give a couple more runs, 4 runs, but he battled. But the Mets offense, more importantly, Juan Soto responded in the bottom of the first. Juan Soto hit a 2-run homer left center field off Marcus Stroman, and that set the tone right there for the Mets. Yeah, we don't have the pitching right now, but we still have a bat or two, and we're going to out him. We're going to hit. And the Mets this was the only way they were going to win this series. This was the only way they were going to beat the Yankees in this series. They were going to out hit them. And Juan Soto, who took a lot of heat, took a lot of flack for struggling in that last series in the Bronx. I think he went 1 for 10 or 1 for 11, I think. Obviously, there was a lot thrown his way during that series. He stepped up big time in this series. And he had a 3-hit game on Friday, a 3-hit performance from Juan Soto in this game. Soto went 3 hits, had the 2-run home run for 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. He was fantastic on Friday, and he was everything. He was, I think it was John Harper who said on SNY, New York Daily News, John Harper said on SNY, if you were a Met fan, you were kind of waiting for like a big game, big performance from Juan Soto, and you got it here, and it was against the Yankees, of course, which makes it a little better. But they stepped right up. Soto steps up, gets a 2-run homer, and they ties the game right off the bat. And that was a great response, and I think that set the tone right away for the Mets. That set the tone right away for also set the tone for how the series is going to be. Those 2 innings. So they take a 2-1 lead, the Mets, and then Pete Alonso after Soto doubled, Pete Alonso drives him in with an RBI single. And again, back and forth they went. The Yankees responded right away and tied the game on a Cody Bellinger home run. So, like I said, back and forth they went, back and forth they go. The Yankees retook the lead on Jason Dominguez's second home run of the game. 5-3 Yankees in the top of the fifth. Back and forth they go. What was that? What was that? 3 home runs already hitting this game. Dominguez, excuse me, yeah, four. Excuse me, what? 4 home runs hitting this game. Dominguez with 2, Judge with 1, Bellinger and Soto. So that's 5. Excuse my math. 5. Dominguez, Judge, Bellinger, Soto, and we weren't done. Brett Beatty steps back and he hits a home run. He makes it 5-4 Yankees. He homers. Uh, and the Mets again kept battling and battling and battling. Whatever the Yankees punched at the Mets punched right back, and that was so key. And then the game came down to the bottom of the seventh, 2 outs, nobody on. What did I say before? The Mets need to get better with 2 outs and nobody on. Get better with 2 outs and nobody on. They proved they did that against Milwaukee, and they did it again here on Friday night. Lindor, bottom of the seventh, Lindor grounds out, Soto flies out. Luke Weaver then comes in to pitch to face. He relieves Tim Hill to face Pete Alonso. Now this was a bit of a interesting decision, you know, by Aaron Boone. This was a bit of an interesting decision by Boone. Why take out Tim Hill, who had pitched really well and got 2 guys out? Why not let him finish the inning against Pete Alonso? But he went with the matchup, and Weaver had been struggling, but he went with the matchup, righty versus righty. He ends up walking Alonso, and then Jeff McNeil has a great at bat, a 6 pitch at bat, and he takes a changeup down and in, and he rips it to the Coke corner for a 2-run home, which gives the Mets the lead. Juan Soto was, I think, the star of this game. Jeff McNeil for the Mets. Jeff McNeil was the MVP. He hit the home run to give him the lead, and then the top of the ninth, he makes a great, spectacular play to save a hit to get the second out in the top of the ninth again, now on DJ LeMahieu, and that was a big play because if he doesn't make that play, and that's a base hit for LeMahieu, well, then the Mets got to face Aaron Judge one more time, more probably maybe in the bottom of the ninth, depending on a Jason Dominguez a double play. But even still, any chance of a win here was going to come down to whether you win a 1-run ball game. Came down to whether you were going to have to face Aaron Judge or not. Top of the ninth, Edwin Diaz is in the game. The Mets are up. 6-5. Diaz comes into the game. Or excuse me, not Edwin Diaz. Reed Garrett. I'm sorry, Reed Garrett. Guys, shout out Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett has pitches who had been really struggling as of late. I think a 7-something ERA in the month of June. He comes in again, bullpen that is just they're fluxing and trying to put the pieces together. Diaz actually wasn't available. Stanek wasn't available. So Reed Garrett went in there and pitched 2 shutout innings in this game against a great Yankee lineup. He went in for the top of the eighth. He strikes out Stanton in the top of the eighth, and then the top of the ninth, gets Grisham out, gets the McNeil play on LeMahieu, and then he gets Jason Dominguez to ground out. Reed Garrett, Soto, McNeil, Reed Garrett, the 3 big stars. We call, in hockey, there's the 3 stars of the game. Those are the 3 stars of this game. Juan Soto is 2-run homer to tie the game, and he gets 3 hits. Jeff McNeil with the home run to give him the lead. And then the great play in the top of the ninth to make sure Aaron Judge didn't step up to the plate, because that was the second out. Dominguez was either going to have to get a hit or draw a walk in order to get Judge at the plate. They get Dominguez out, and the Mets get a win. They go back and forth with the Yankees on Friday afternoon, excuse me. They go back and forth against a great Yankee lineup with the pitching at a disadvantage. against the Yankees, who were throwing in at least Marcus Stroman, who's at least a professional pitcher. And the Mets ended up winning the game and ended up pulling off a victory. And they did the same thing on Saturday. Again, Frankie Montez is pitching, so you're not really sure what you're going to get, especially after his latest start, especially after his last start against Pittsburgh Pirates. But the Mets came right out in the bottom of the first, swinging. Brandon Nimmo gets his second grand slam in as many days to get the Mets up right away, 4-0. You get a good, again, what have I said before? Get a lead. Get a lead early. With your pitching the way it is, you need to get leads early. And the Mets again got a lead early with Brandon Nimmo, who is, aside from Juan Soto, has been the hottest hitter they have in that lineup right now. He hits a grand slam. Speaking of Soto, set up by a Juan Soto sacrifice bunt, set up by a Juan Soto bunt. Nimmo gets the grand slam. Two batters later, 4-0 right off the bat, and the Mets are off to the races from there. This ended up being a 12-6 Met win. It got closer. It got close in the time of the Yankees again. Yankees again kept scoring and scoring. There was, I think, a home run by, the Mets get the Yankees responded right back in the top of the second after the grand slam. There was Jazz Chisholm hit a home run in the top of the second, but the Mets came right back and scored another run in the bottom of the second. Starling Marte RBI single. We'll get to Marte in a second, but Marte has been really good so far for the Mets. He was pretty good. He was really good in this series, but we'll get to him in a second after yesterday's game. But then the Yankees responded right back at the top of the third on an Austin Wells home run. It's 5-2. So again, back and forth they go. Get to the bottom of the fifth. The Mets get 2 extra runs on a Pete Alonso home run at opposite field, 7-2, his first of the game because he wasn't done. But then the Yankees came right back in the top of the sixth. Came right back in the top of the sixth with a home run of themselves, a double by Cody Bellinger, a couple base hits here and there, little base hits here and there against Frankie Montez. Bellinger drives him in with a 2 RBI double. It's 7-4 Mets. And so you're thinking, okay, here we go. Montez, and this was in the top of the sixth, so Montez has to come out of the game for Richard Lovelady. Frankie Montez in this game finishes the game. Again, it wasn't terrible. I think the numbers don't look as good as how he actually pitched. But 5 innings, 5 hits, seven runs, 6 earned runs allowed, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. I was reading Carlos Rodon's stat number. I apologize. Yeah, the Mets did a really good job on Carlos Rodon. I apologize. I was reading Carlos Rodon's stat page. The Mets did a very good job on Carlos Rodon. They did. They did a very good job on Rodon. But against Frankie Montez, 5 2/3, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, and 2 strikeouts. Again, probably not. Again, no walks, which was nice. But again, a decent outing for Frankie Montez. Was assisted also by the offense doing really well. I mentioned Carlos Rodon's stat page. Again, the Mets did a good job. 5 innings, 5 hits, 7 earned runs, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, and gave up the 2 home runs. But it's 7-4. It's a close game. Back and forth they go. It becomes 7-5 in the top of the seventh. And then the Mets finally put this one away in the bottom of the seventh, thanks to Pete Alonso's 3-run jack that puts the Mets up and pretty much, wins it for the Mets right there. Alonso gets his second home run of the day. This was a first pitch. Aaron Boone takes out. What did he take out? Because he brings in a rookie pitcher who's making his debut in this game. He's making his debut. To face Juan Soto, and he takes out Scott Efros, the veteran righty, for Javier Sandres, a rookie pitcher making his debut against Juan Soto and Pete Alonso. Now, before that, Mauricio hit a double. Ronnie Mauricio has hit the ball very well. Lindor drives him in with a base hit. It's 8-5. Takes him out for the rookie. Takes out Efros for the rookie, Aaron Boone, to face Juan Soto and Pete Alonso. He walks Soto, and that sets up Alonso's home run. It's 11-5. 3-run homer. It's 11-5. And again, the Mets added on. The Mets added on one more run. The Yankees added on one more run. But Alonso's home run was the capper for this game. And Pete Alonso now inches closer and closer. It was the capper to this game. And now Pete Alonso, inches closer and closer to Darryl Strawberry's record. He inches closer and closer now to Darryl Strawberry's record for the Mets all-time home run record. But the Mets win this game 12-6. Carlos Mendoza was not playing around for this one. He puts in, even a 6-run ball game, he puts in Ryan Stanek in the top of the eighth, and then he throws in Edwin Diaz in the top of the ninth. Montez pitches, Lovelady pitches, Chris Davinsky pitches. He started on Sunday. Ryan Stanek pitches, and Stanek was a bit erratic, which is probably why he was a bit erratic. Gave up a run, 2 walks, and that was probably why. That was also part of the reason why, uh, you know, Carlos Mendoza went to Edwin Diaz, because Carlos Mendoza said, "I ain't losing this series. I got a chance to win this series. Max Fried's pitching tomorrow, so I got to get a win here." So, and we got a day off on Monday. So he throws in Edwin Diaz at the top of the ninth. Diaz faces Aaron Judge for the second time. Not as exciting as their last matchup that ended in the Aaron Judge, that ended in Edwin Diaz striking him out in a 1-run ball game with 2 outs. But still, Edwin Diaz gets Aaron Judge out on a ground ball. Great play by Brett Beatty on a diving play. And the Mets win the game 12-6, and they take the series. This was a team that hadn't won a series. Again, I know the Yankees aren't playing great baseball right now. And again, this was a lot different. This was a much different series for both the Mets and the Yankees compared to what it was 2 months ago. But once again, the Mets have won a series. That's all that mattered. You know, the Mets hadn't won a series in the last, 5 prior to Milwaukee. And now you win back-to-back series. It's about getting in wins and getting back into the groove. And the Mets, after getting destroyed by the Pittsburgh Pirates, a bad baseball team, they played better as of late. The Pirates, certainly they're scoring a lot more runs as of late, but there's no reason for the Mets to lose a combined score of 30-4 to the Pittsburgh Pirates last weekend. But because it's baseball, because it's 162, because baseball is a marathon, not a sprint, things can change in a week. Last weekend, we were talking about how bad the Mets were, how bad they were, getting destroyed by the Pirates in 3 straight games. A weekend later, hey, the Mets have now won 4 of their last 6. Hey, they've won back-to-back series. Hey, they beat 2 pretty good baseball teams in Milwaukee and the Yankees. Oh, hey, look at that. It's baseball. And for them to do, again, we'll get to Sunday's game, but for them to win this series and do the way they did it with little to no pitching. Literally, there was no pitching for not just the Mets, but for the Yankees themselves, I guess, aside from Max Fried. But even Fried, I didn't think was that great on Sunday. But no pitching from the Mets, really, aside from Reed Garrett and Edwin Diaz. The Mets had to win this series with their bats. And that hasn't really happened as much over the season, where you had to win a series with your offense. And they've won these last two series, especially this Yankee series, with their offense. And they had to win with their offense. They had to. And their stars showed up. Lindor, Alonso, Soto, McNeil stepped up in a big way. Nimmo has been fantastic. They stepped up and won this series. And now they've won back-to-back series heading to Baltimore tomorrow. Sunday's game against the Yankees, Max Fried pitched. Hey, Mets are playing with house money in this game. The Mets lost this game 6-4, but this really could have been a Mets sweep. Should have been a Mets sweep. They went 4 for 10 runs in scoring position. They made too many double plays. They based nobody out and only mustered up 2 runs out of it because McNeil hit a ground ball and there was an error on the throw to Paul Goldschmidt. Actually bounced off the umpire. If that ball that went past Goldschmidt doesn't bounce off the umpire, Mauricio scores from third base. And then Hayden Senga ground to a double play, which I kind of do have to question Carlos Mendoza. Why I would have pinch hit Luis Torrens in that situation for Hayden Senga. That's just me. I know it's the 6th inning. I think it was the 6th inning or so. So maybe he didn't want to take him out right away. But, he didn't want to put in Torrens right away, especially when Torrens already played the last 2 games. He wanted to get Torrens the full day off. I understand that. But, in that situation, base load, nobody out. I think you should have put Torrens in there instead of Hayden Senga. But Senga grounds a double play on the first pitch he saw. And there was the great play by Bellinger. The other best chance the Mets had was when Lindor got on base and then Soto hits a line drive. Bellinger makes a great play. Just catches that baseball before it lands on the grass. He makes a beautiful throw, a picture-perfect throw to Goldschmidt to get Lindor out for the double play. Like I said, I think that was like the second of 3 or so double plays the Mets grounded into in like the last 3 or 4 or so innings of the game. And the Mets end up, and Max Fried wasn't pitched solidly, but he only went 5 innings in this game. I think he still struck out about six, seven. But he wasn't. He wasn't. Wasn't great. 5 innings, 5 strikeouts. They made him work. 6 hits, 3 earned runs. You know, the Mets. Look, look. They did a decent job against. If the Mets actually had a professional pitcher out there, a starter, they threw in Davinsky, who actually did okay, 2 innings, 2 strikeouts. Then Zach Pop came in and really struggled, an inning in the third, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 home run allowed, which was the home run to Aaron Judge. Judge hit his second home run of the series. Waddell came in 2 out of 2/3, 3 hits, gave up 2 runs. Brazoban was kind of inconsistent in his inning of work. Rico Garcia then came in and actually went 2 shot innings and struck out Aaron Judge. Actually gave the Mets an opportunity to stay in this game, win this game, Rico Garcia. So big ups to him, big credit to him, big credit to Rico Garcia. So, I think so. If the Mets just had a solid starting pitcher out there, they probably could have swept this series. They probably could have swept this series. But you take the 2 out of 3, they lose. They lose this game 6-4. The Mets went actually both the Mets went 4 for 10 runs of scoring position. But overall, you know, they could have won this game. Could have been a sweep. And if you were to tell me that the Mets would win 2 out of 3 against the Yankees this weekend, you know, I don't know if I would have. I said at the beginning of this. I said at the beginning going into the series that this should have been the Yankees winning the series, maybe in a sweep. You know, Especially with the pitching matchups favoring the Yankees and the pitching matchups and the Yankees hitting a little bit better than the Mets. And the Yankees were just coming off a 4-game sweep of the Blue Jays, so you felt maybe the Yankees would be a bit motivated to get back on track into things. But it was the Mets who continued rolling, who continued their momentum off that Brewer series, ended up winning 2 out of 3, and really could have swept the Yankees. So a big credit to the Mets, huge credit to the Mets to come back from this, from sweep against the Pirates and the sweep against Atlanta, lose 2 out of 3 to Philadelphia, the split against Atlanta, come back from the stretch that they were on. The first game 1 of the doubleheader against the Brewers, they come back, they win 4 in a row. They beat the Brewers 2 out of 3, a good playoff team. They beat the Yankees 2 out of 3, a good playoff team. Massive credit to the Mets. Massive credit to Carlos Mendoza. Massive credit to their offense, who stepped up, especially in this series against the Yankees. And they've now built some momentum here. They've now won 4 of the last 6, you know, as they head to Baltimore this next starting tomorrow in a 3-game series of the Orioles before they face the Royals over the weekend. So good job by the Mets. They needed this series. They won this series. Got it, and look, they should have beaten the Yankees 2 months ago. They should have. There was too many infield mistakes that they made. A lot of runners in scoring position they left. They really should have beaten the Yankees 2 out of 3 in that series, Yankee Stadium as well. They just made too many mistakes and couldn't score runners in scoring position. So good for them to come back against the Yankees after everything. Good for them to come back against the Yankees and win 2 out of 3 there. We do have some injury news to get to. Starling Marte mentioned he's been so good at DH, and a lot of people were like, I don't know about Marte at DH, and I was one of those few that said, Marte could be a pretty good designated hitter, but and he's been pretty good. He's hit the ball really well. He's done very well against left-handed pitching. Carlos Mendoza loves using him against left-handed pitching. I would personally use him every day, lefties against righties, no matter who it is. But unfortunately, yesterday, as the Mets were, he injures his knee. It looked like, I think it could have been, they did start him in left field, which I thought was interesting. He was supposed to be the DH yesterday, but then they made the change from Nimmo to DH, and Marte would play left field. So I'm not sure if the injury did happen, maybe on a play in left field, but it did aggravate him on a pitch where he didn't even swing. It was on the bottom of the 8th or so, or I think bottom of the ninth. You know, he didn't even swing. He just kind of went like that, and his knee kind of looked like his knee kind of buckled and bothered him. And he had a ground out, and he didn't run well at all. And look, we know about Marte's knee injuries. We know about his issues with his groin and his quads and his knees. And that's part of the reason. It's the reason why he's not a full-time guy anymore. He's a part-time guy at DH, doesn't play the field. But even so, I thought it was interesting that he did play left field yesterday. But we'll find out tomorrow. We'll find out tomorrow. Well, I'm sure we'll know more tomorrow before the game. Jesse Winker is scheduled to be activated off the injured list tomorrow. So it does, really hurt the Mets that just as you're about to get Jesse Winker back, you might be losing Marte. We'll see. We'll see what the update is starting tomorrow. But, Marte's been so good for the Mets this season. His bat's been really good. He's been healthy, but it just stings to see Marte once again hurt because he's a very good baseball player and one of the key Mets guys that they have on the team when he's healthy. And it just stinks that he got hurt in that sort of manner where it just kind of happened, just a bad luck sort of injury. So we'll get more updates on that tomorrow. If I'm sure from Mendoza, his knee after Marte's knee flared up. But of course, Jesse Winker is coming off the injured list tomorrow. He will be there in Baltimore. Um, now you need Winker to hit because Winker wasn't exactly hitting well before his injury. But if Marte has to miss time, we'll see. Again, we'll see. If Marte has to miss time, Jesse Winker, it's now on him to really step up and hit like he did down the stretch of last season and in the playoffs. He wasn't hit that well this year before his injury. If Marte has to miss time, they'll need Winker now, especially against right-handed pitching. But Jesse Winker, and also I think it's good for Winker to come back into the clubhouse, come out to the locker room, get back out on the field, get back and hit. So, but they're going to need him to contribute, Jesse Winker. But Winker will be back tomorrow against the Baltimore Orioles. All-Star game. All-Star game. Little All-Star game news for the Mets after the game was over. Edwin Diaz is in the All-Star team, which I think is really cool. I think Edwin Diaz deserves it. I think he's been one of the best relief pitchers in all baseball. He's really come back. Edwin Diaz has, I think, fully come back from the injury. Again, I'm not going to say he's 2022 Diaz because 2022 Diaz was just on a different planet. But I think he has finally fully come back from that knee injury that he suffered at the World Baseball Classic 2 years ago. He had a bit of an up and down season last year, but he did finish off the season very strong in the second half, had a good playoffs. So I was excited to see Edwin Diaz come back this season and look like the guy we know he can be. And he has. Diaz has pitched phenomenal. He's been fantastic. I think he's only given up one earned run in the last 20 plus innings. He looks like vintage Edwin Diaz. Big plus for the New York Mets, but he makes the All-Star team. Congrats to him. I think that's great. Pete Alonso also makes the All-Star team. And to the surprise of I'm sure many, and to the surprise of myself, Pete Alonso will not be in the home run derby on Monday, next Monday. So yeah, I a little bit surprised by that. And I think the reason for that for Pete is that he doesn't like Truist Park. Yeah, he said to the media that he never really experienced the 3 days off and he wants the second half and all that stuff, right? I get that. I'm sure that was part of the reason, but I think a teeny bit more of the reason is because I'm sure he doesn't like SunTrust Park. That's just my opinion. It's a hard place to hit home runs in. So, but I'm for surprising many, Pete Alonso, who's been a stablemate of the home run derby since his rookie year in 2019. He's won two of them. He's participated in every one of them. That they've done 19, 21, 2, 3, 4. Obviously there wasn't a home run derby All-Star game in 2020. But in every single one of them in his career, he has participated in them and he's become a mainstay, a stableman. Like he's like Ken Griffey Jr. back in the 90s, etc. And he decides he's gonna opt out of it this year. I thought that was very interesting, but I know there's a famous thing about, the home run derby might ruin your swing, and Pete's been so good. I'm not a big believer in that, that the home run derby ruins your swing. Heck, it sometimes brings your swing back. Look at Juan Soto a couple of years ago. But speaking of Juan Soto, Pete Alonso will not be in the home run derby, but he is in the All-Star game. But speaking of Juan Soto, he is not in the All-Star game. And that has obviously given a lot of Met fans and not only Met fans, but some national baseball people as well. Look, Juan Soto has been pretty darn good to this point of the season. He's had a really good month of June that really helped out his numbers, so to speak. But Soto was still putting up decent numbers in April and May, but he was inconsistent April and May. The numbers with runners in scoring position is still not the best. Look, he's still amongst the National League leaders in categories like home runs, OPS, walks. He's got 10 stolen bases this season, which is I don't think it leads the Mets, but it's got to be at least up there. Runs scored, his OPS, OPS plus, his WAR is really good. The home runs obviously have now gone up over the past month or so. He had 9 coming into June. He now has 21. You know, so I get it. So Soto's numbers and his numbers are better than Corbin Carroll's, Fernando Tatis's, and Stowers. So yeah, he should be an all-star. I'll address it real quickly. Juan Soto, yes, should be an all-star representing the New York Mets, but I understand why he's not. 2 months were inconsistent. You know, the first 2 months were inconsistent, hot and cold. There was the big contract. There was the perception a lot by fans and even some of the New York media that, well, he wasn't comfortable with the Mets. Or he's not happy with the Mets, or he might, oh, he misses the Yankees, so and so. There was a lot of he got Lindored, so to speak, right? Lindor had his, we all talked about, oh, why didn't Lindor make the All-Star team? You know, the last couple of years, and I felt he should have been an All-Star the last couple of years from 2022 to 2024, and good for Lindor for him to finally become an All-Star for the Mets, and not only become an All-Star but become a starter. But what's the big reason for that? Well, it's because Lindor got off to a really good start. April and May, he was really good. Lindor has gotten his hitting back as of late, but from June to from June to when he broke his pinky toe to just recently, Lindor had been really struggling. But why is Lindor an all-star now? Well, his first 2 months are really good. And I also think there's a lot of people that now saw what he did last year and go, oh yeah, yeah, he's still Francisco Lindor. He's still a stud. He's still a stud. Um, so, so, you know, that's why Lindor is an all-star now. You know, but Juan Soto now is kind of in the same boat as Lindor, right? Big contract, conversations and perceptions that are surrounding him, inconsistencies like Lindor had the previous couple of years in April, to start the season. So Juan Soto should be an all-star, and who knows? Maybe next Tuesday when we get to the All-Star game, he will be an all-star. But I'm not surprised. He should have been an all-star again. His numbers are better than Towers and Stowers and Corbin Carroll's and Tatis's. His numbers are better than them. It is. But I'm not surprised Soto's not all-star. It didn't surprise. He should be, but it didn't surprise me that he's not. Some more pitching news for the New York Mets. This weekend, there'll be some pluses for the Mets starting pitching. Sean Manaea is on the way back. Kodai Senga is on the way back. So the Mets finally will get some reinforcements on the starting pitching staff this weekend. So Kodai Senga is expected to come off the injured list, and he is expected to pitch on either Friday or Saturday against the Kansas City Royals. Sean Manaea is penciled in on Sunday. So it looks like either Friday or Saturday will be Kodai Senga and his return, and Sunday will be Sean Manaea. So good job. Big reinforcements coming for the Mets. They really need the reinforcements. They really need these two guys back right now, and they get them just in time, just in time back for the beginning of the second half. They'll pitch this weekend, and then they'll be right there fully healthy for the second half of the season. So that is a big plus for the Mets, a big add for the Mets, needed for the Mets. The starting pitching really could use their help right now. So you get Senga back, you get Manaea back, you got David Peterson, who now can be slotted back into the 3 spot where he's most comfortable at. You got Clay Holmes still pitching solidly for you. The 5th spot will have to be solved. Right now, it's Blackburn's now on the injured list. Tyler McGill is on the injured list. So they're still going to have to find a way to solve the 5th spot in that rotation. But right now, you got Senga, you got Manaea, you got Holmes, you got Senga, you got Manaea, you got Peterson, you got Holmes, and you got Montez. So actually, that's the 5. Excuse me. So to recap, Senga, Manaea, Peterson, Holmes, and Montez. So that's your 5. Finally, your full 5 as they head into the second half of the season. So, and I'm sure with additions to come, right? Now, obviously not the full 5 Griffin Canning, but, obviously not the full 5 Griffin Canning, but, he's now out. He's, of course, out. But that's your 5 now. That was your expected 5 guys. Nobody really expected Griffin Canning to be as good as he was. But that's really that was the full 5 guys the Mets were expected to have in the starting rotation when spring training began. The Mets will now finally have it for the second half of the season. Senga, Manaea, Peterson, Holmes, and Montez. And, as I was saying before, I would expect an addition, in a few weeks. So I think General Manager David Stearns would be very wise to get another starting pitcher to add to that rotation. Also, a few bullpen, also a bullpen arm or two. I think again, center field, starting center fielder. If they're going to add another bat, starting center fielder, and then starting pitcher, and I think about two bullpen arms. They could use some help in that bullpen, especially in the middle innings. But good news for the Mets. They'll get some of their starting pitchers back in Manaea and Kodai Senga. So over the weekend, the Mets go to Baltimore. They'll play the Orioles, who are playing good baseball. The Orioles have been one of the most disappointing teams in baseball this year, but as of late, they're playing very good baseball. They are playing good baseball, and they're actually getting some decent starting pitching as of late. But the strength of the Orioles is their offense. So, and they're going to Baltimore, the Mets. So the Mets may have to win this series again with their offense. So as they head to Baltimore, preview this game one tomorrow night, 6:35. Clay Holmes will take the mound. He's aiming for with a 2.99 ERA coming into this game. Again, we'll see how much the Mets limit his innings and his pitch count, especially with this, especially in this game. The Orioles will throw and pitch um, Young, 0-3 with a 7.02 ERA. He was just coming in. Actually, Trevor Rogers has pitched really well for the Orioles too. But that's the pitching matchup for tomorrow at 6:35. David Pearson will then pitch on Wednesday. David Pearson will then pitch on Wednesday for the Mets. He'll face Sagano of the Orioles. And then on Thursday afternoon, 1 o'clock, actually a Wednesday night ESPN game for the New York Mets. And on Thursday afternoon, 1:05, TBD, no one is expected to start for the Mets as of yet. There has been an announcement. I assume that could be a bullpen game again against Charlie Morton of the Orioles. So again, this is a series where the Mets need to win with their offense. Holmes, I think Holmes and Peterson right now are the sure things in this series. You have to hope they pitch well, or at least give you enough innings and pitch well enough to win. But the Mets are going to have to win the series with their offense. You have to keep clicking with your offense. Keep clicking, keep clicking, keep clicking, keep clicking. Because the Mets are going to have to. Gary Cohen and Keith and Ron, they all said it during the broadcast on Friday and Saturday, or even during the Brewer series. You're going to have to win games now, 9-7, 9-8. You're going to have to win games with your offense now. With your pitching the way it is, you're going to have to win games with your offense. But if the pitching can come back together and the offense can finally get on a groove, that is a great thing for the Mets as they head to the second half of the season and eventually into the stretch run August, September. But key thing for the Mets in the series, hit the ball. Continue your offense momentum the way you've done against Milwaukee and the Yankees. Continue your offensive momentum, and you should be able to win this series. But if the offense isn't there, against that Orioles offense and an Orioles team that's playing pretty decent baseball right now, bit of a letdown. So it could be a letdown series. But the Mets need to go out there against Baltimore and keep hitting. Keep hitting, keep hitting, keep hitting. And of course, tomorrow we'll find out. Well, I'm sure we'll find out more about Starling Marte. Let's hope Marte is okay because he's been a quietly big part of this offense. And if he has to go on the injured list, that would stink. But he's been a good hitter, a good player for this team, especially when he's healthy. But key thing for the Mets again: keep hitting, score runs, give your pitching some room to work with and some room for comfort. So that's a key aspect for this. We'll see how the Mets do in this series against the Baltimore Orioles. That'll I'll do it today for MazzaOnMets. Again, more so today was about the Subway Series, some news about Senga and Manaea, around Major League Baseball. Let's see if there's any National League East teams playing today on Monday night. Let's see. Any National League East teams playing today? Well, the Marlins play the Reds in Cincinnati at 7:10. And we got Rangers, Angels, D-backs, Padres. The Philadelphia Phillies play the San Francisco Giants today at 9:45. So the Phillies are on the road today against the New York Giants. They begin a series with the Giants. Looks like I would assume this has got to be a 3-game or 4-game series between the Phils and the Giants here. Let's see. It's not. It's a 3-game series between the Phillies and the Giants in San Francisco. So as the Mets enter today on their off day, they are a game and a half out of first place. So if the Giants can win that game, the Mets will be a game out of first place as they head into their series in Baltimore. Pitching matchup for that game. Did you see Zach Wheeler last night, by the way? 1-hit complete game shutout. Sanchez against Rope. So we'll see how that goes. Phillies and Giants, 9:45. Sanchez versus Rope in that one. If the Giants win, the Mets will be a game out of first place. If the Phillies win, the Mets will be 2 games out of first place. heading into their series against the Baltimore Orioles. The Marlins play the Cincinnati Reds at 7:10. Actually, other National League East news. We're talking about the National League East. The Washington Nationals fired Dave Martinez, their manager, and fired Mike Rizzo, their general manager. Big surprise with Mike Rizzo. I'm not really surprised with Dave Martinez, especially when Martinez didn't hold the coaches responsible. He kind of threw the players under the bus a few weeks ago. But a little bit surprised with Mike Rizzo considering how well of a drafter he is, and the draft is literally like a week from now. So, but a little bit surprised by that. But the Nationals fired their manager, fired their GM, fired Martinez and Rizzo, and the new manager is former big league player, former New York Met guy who was a journeyman, has been around all of baseball of his career, played in different areas like the Reds and the Mets and the Yankees. Miguel Cairo is the interim manager of the Washington Nationals. So we got some action. So we got some managerial moves and front office moves in the National League East um, with the Washington Nationals. The Nationals, I still think they're a good scrappy team, but yeah, as of late they've really struggled. James Wood is an all-star. Kid's a stud. Kid's a star. He was named to the all-star team last night. The dude's a stud. He's a star. Another 22-year-old young stud player for the Nationals, like Bryce Harper, like Juan Soto, that the Mets, I'm sure, will have to be dealing with for the next decade. But James Wood's a fantastic player. Going to be in the home run derby. He is my sleeper quiet pick. When I do MazzaOnMets on Monday, I will make my official home run derby pick for Monday for the home run derby. Right now, though, James Wood's my sleeper pick. If I had to make a pick right now, James Wood would be my pick. I think James Wood could I think James Wood could have a lot of fun on Monday night, but we'll see what happens. We'll talk about more about the home run derby on Monday, and as we on Monday, since we're talking about Monday, we'll recap not only the Mets series with the Royals, but we'll also do a Mets season, first half season grades. We'll grade their pitching, we'll grade their offense, we'll grade their bullpen, coaching, etc. Front office moves. We'll grade everything about them. We'll recap the first half of the season. We'll recap their best, my opinion, their best win of their first half of the season, their best win of the first half of the season, and then we'll preview their second half coming up. Obviously, lots to talk about for the second half. A lot more division opponents. Big division race will be heating up in the National League East with the Phillies and who knows, maybe even the Braves if they get back in it. So, well, that'll be for Monday's show. Anyway, that will be it for today's edition of MazzaOnMets. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please give the show a like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys on Friday for more MazzaOnMets. I'm hoping for a bit of MazzaOnRavens sometime this week, just to get back into the thick of things with the Baltimore Ravens. But stay tuned for more MazzaOnMets on Friday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for listening. Give this video a like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys on Friday. And let's go Mets.